Here's another reason why you want to take. Here's another reason why you want to take control of what you're doing.
Everything kind of funnels into the only winning move is not to play the game.
So I got to ask permission to buy the gun, and then I got to pay to ask permission to carry the motherfucker outside of my house. How about you go fuck yourself?
Well, the reason why I'm here is because I'm at the NASCAR track. I'm at Daytona right now, if you can see everything in back of me right here. And I'm here exactly for the train wreck, which is going to be the 2024 presidential debate. And I want to welcome you guys to the Weathered Report with all my regular cohorts over there. We got Jason, producer Jason there from Horrible Designs, Mad K Studios. Mad K Ken is there. We're still waiting on Harkos to make his entrance here, but we have two special guests tonight, and those special guests are both Minnesota State representatives. Number one being Shane Mekeland, number two being Walter Hudson. Welcome to the podcast, and Shane, this is your second time.
I mean, we've been getting along well doing podcasts and whatever, but I don't know that I'm going to go with husband.
It's Pride Month, guys. It's Pride Month. Come on.
Exactly. It's
have a little respect.
As everybody would say around here, I'm gay like that. So, whatever. I got a ring too. So I'm married to a very beautiful woman. So we're not going. I don't know where'd that Freudian slip come from.
Especially speaking to Walter of all things.
I mean, listen, at least, so it's two syllables, has the same letter at the beginning. I mean, that's not terrible. I've been called worse. But people, you know what the most frequent misnaming that I get is from Walter? Dudes will call me Howard. Now, there's a W in there, but I don't know how you get from, unless you're trying to take like the first name and the last name and kind of like have an amalgamation. I don't know how you get to Howard, but that's the most common misnaming that I experience.
That is a riot.
Well, I just want to interject. I wanted to interject right here that we are live on Rumble and live on YouTube. I think we have a Facebook feed going. We'll see how long that one lasts. And then we have we're all live on X too. So I am monitoring the Rumble site. If somebody wants to, I think our comment site actually coming from Facebook today. We'll see what they do. We're going to be streaming live, CNN live, and we'll see how far that goes. If one of you guys can find a stream somewhere else and share your screen, if ours happen to go dead, that would be great. But basically what we're here for is we're here to give our comments and opinions and our lampooning of the 2024 presidential debate. And it's going to be real interesting. Maybe not. We just really don't know which candidate's going to show up on either side. So are we going to have Sleepy Joe, or are we going to have Hyped Up Joe, or are we going to have demure Donald Trump who's under control, or are we going to have that 14-year-old that tweets on X all the time and cries about how everybody bullies him? But I don't know. But basically, we're sitting here with Shane Mekeland and Walter Hudson. I got it right this time, Hudson. And basically, you guys are familiar because you guys are in government. What should we expect from this? I mean, you guys have probably seen a couple of more debates than I have. I really don't watch the debates. This will be probably the second one that I've ever watched. What are you really expecting tonight, if you're expecting anything?
I'm expecting to be frustrated because, and I'll be perhaps more honest than I should be here. I really think the Trump campaign made a mistake agreeing to the terms of this debate. Because from my understanding of how it's going to go down, first of all, there's no live audience. That's like having a sitcom without a laugh track. Number one. Number two, you've got CNN in full control of the mics. They can just shut people's mics off, which I'll take your bets on who's most likely to have their mic shut off and for what length of time, Trump. What duration. And you've got moderators who are openly hostile to one of the candidates, Donald Trump. And you've got a network that's openly hostile to one of the candidates, Donald Trump. So I don't know why the campaign chose to agree to these terms. it might be an abundance of confidence in both the ability of Trump to do what Trump does and also the inability of Biden to do anything at all. Maybe that's what they're banking on, is that even with these lopsided circumstances, they'll be able to prevail and it'll be that much more impressive. But to my mind, it's a hell of a gamble. So I'm expecting to be frustrated tonight by the bias and the lopsided moderation from CNN.
How about you, Shane? What are we looking at?
So a couple things. I was talking to somebody I know out in your fine state of California yesterday, and apparently he's pretty well tied to Harmeet Dillon. And he's of the opinion that Trump should literally walk in there, make an opening statement, and leave.
I love it.
And just kind of leave it at that, which I'm sure they've thought about every scenario. I'm sure they're all getting all kinds of messages from a lot of opinions. I'm actually hoping they use that mute button. I think it'll backfire on them like you wouldn't believe. It's no different than the indictments and then the conviction, which has turned so many people open their eyes to, like, this is what they do to us all the time. When they don't just, they saw through it. And if they sit there and hit the mute button every time he tries to say something, it's going to show the same thing. So I'm kind of hoping they play the mute button heavily, and it'll probably backfire. I mean, former New York Governor Cuomo went out on did a presser, I don't know, a week ago, somewhere in there. And he even said that they need to drop this whole lawsuit conviction thing. It's backfiring. It's not working how they intended it to, and yet they keep doing more. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, because you don't know. I mean, nobody knows what to expect. It could be kind of fun.
Ken's our like resident political guy here, so I want to ask him the same question. What do you think, Ken? What's your views?
Boy, this could really go any direction. It's hard to even fathom. I'm with you, Walter. How do you agree to this for a debate? You have to. I think there's a fair amount of hubris in there that said, okay, I think we can just take care of this. But this is going to be so slanted, and I think that's probably, now look to Shane's point, this is probably what the Trump team is hoping this is a witch hunt, and that they come after him really hard, and then they can just take all the clips, everything like that, and just say, see. And I think that the left has been talking about baiting Trump into just being mean to the old guy, which I'm sure he will be at some level, but I think it's going to go the other direction. I think he's baiting them into stifling him and not allowing him to speak and shutting him down. Jake Tapper, like I talked to Shane, actually, we were joking around last night, and Jake Tapper, if he was on one side, okay, but then the other interviewer should be Tucker Carlson. So you have someone completely anti-Trump and someone completely pro-Trump, but no one's pro-Biden if you look at this. So even Tapper and these people are, you can read between the lines what they're saying. I still think the idea of this for the Democrats is to make Biden look like a complete moron so that they can get rid of him and put someone else in there they think could beat Trump. So I think that's, if I was a betting man and I'm sitting at the bar, and the reason why I'm sitting at the bar at my new studio bar here tonight, because I'm going to need a drink and I don't want to be far from it.
I've already got my gym beam on the rock, so I'm ready to go, ready to rock and roll.
I've had the Minnesota sniffles for the last 3-4 days. I got a little bit of going on, so once in a while I'll just tap out. But I'm starting with iced tea, so we'll see how the night goes. It'll get heavier. I can go iced tea all the way to Everclear, so that's my range. So by what's in my glass and when I'm pouring, you can kind of gauge how the evening's going. And I'm the Dean Martin of the group here too, so I'll try all of the liquors. We'll just see how it goes. But yeah, I think that tonight's going to be just a show of, first of all, a nothing sandwich. No one's going to learn anything, of course, because you don't in any of these. But it's going to be you're a convicted criminal and you're senile. January 6th and your son's a coke addict. China paid you money and you sleep with prostitutes. I think that's what we're going to have here. Is just a mud fest, mudslinging.
I mean, I know I'm not I know I'm not the
Go ahead.
host here, but I am interested in presenting a question for somebody to take up. How do you guys think Trump is going to handle the "you're a convicted felon" thing tonight in the debate?
Well,
Go ahead.
one thing that I saw on, I can't remember where I saw it on, but he could easily say, well, yeah, I'm a convicted felon, but at least the Justice Department found me competent.
Yes.
Easily look at that way.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good point because when I read that about his document scandal, and when they came back and said that he wasn't competent enough to stand trial or even be indicted on those charges, it opened my eyes, and I'm just like, wow, how bad can this get when you actually admit on to the whole country that your president is incompetent to be charged with any crime, yet Donald Trump, which is who is very competent and very physically fit and able to do what he needs to do to get the job done, is sitting there and is taking the brunt of every prosecutor that hates him in the United States. And I'm sure there's more charges in store for him once he wins office, because I do believe that he's probably most likely going to win. It's still going to be an uphill climb because you've got the vegetative zombies that are going to the 81 million that are still going to freaking vote for Biden, whatever you say. I don't think anything has changed like that, but I think the Republicans need to rally around. And I've been on that side where Shane kind of convinced me to vote, a couple of weeks ago when I was on a podcast, and I've kind of weaned my way towards not doing it again. So maybe Walter and Shane can kind of steer me in that direction to maybe I want to vote again. But that's the way I feel about it. How about you, Jason?
I'm kind of leaning the same way. I've been listening to two of their podcasts yesterday and today, and I'm kind of leaning the same way as you are, to where especially some of the things that Walter has been saying, that I may wind up just going out and just doing it just because of I can't remember how he phrased it, but I actually having the balls to actually stand up for the country.
Well, I would say to both of you
and
guys,
that one resonated with me pretty hard.
No, that makes sense. I would say to both of you guys that this is the one chance you guys have right now for a true, you don't have to vote for anybody. This is a true protest vote. And if enough people do it, we will be in a much better spot. And having been, worked in politics for a long time, for 10, 11 years, really pretty hardcore in it. There was the difference between just a few votes. It matters more in your city council and all that kind of stuff. I've been saying that, and these two guys will back me up, I'm sure, on this, is that your local stuff is going to affect you way more than president. So you're going to be in there voting for your local stuff anyway. At least make the protest vote saying, if you're going to persecute someone that bad, that could happen to me, and I'm voting for the guy no matter what, because this is my protest vote. You in some ways, you can't win either way. And, honestly, like I said, the president can affect you in some ways he can't, not as much as your city council does or your local county board. But if you don't go vote, for me, I'm just one of those people that if you don't vote, don't come to me and complain. Because if you're not going to vote, then get involved in the political situation somehow in some way. So you can make a difference locally, at least start the farm team to bring people up. I mean, these two guys we got tonight, Shane and Walter, are both hardcore activists. I mean, Walter, I've known you for probably 10 years now, from the Tea Party days and doing things like that. And hearing this man speak was always like one of the most inspirational things that made me want to go out and do more. And he wasn't telling me to do more, but it was just like, you know what? This guy's speaking truth. I mean, it's really, it's freedom, it's liberty. And if we don't start somewhere and actually do something to make get off our asses and go, at least at minimum, just go vote, and that includes, you can do write-in candidates. I mean, you vote for who you want to vote for. I'm not telling anyone who to vote for, but personally, I have a lot of issues with Trump, but a lot less issues than I would with anyone else that's running right now. And so he would get my vote anyway. I voted for him the last 2 times. He'd get this one too. But it's solid, and now I'm going to work to make sure other people will vote for him just for that reason of If they can do it to him, they can do it to you, except you don't have any chance at all at winning in a court case like that.
I would agree. And so, like you said, single votes can matter. To that point, there's a couple cases I can cite here. So when Mary Franzen first got elected, I believe she won by 1 vote.
And for the national, excuse me, for the national people, explain who Mary Franzen is that might not know her.
So she's a state representative, but in her first when she first got elected, and it went to a recount, and it ended up being, I'm pretty sure it's 1 vote. 2 years ago, well, almost 2 years ago, there were 2 races in northern Minnesota, which had predominantly been Democrat-held areas, which is the Iron Range, strong Democrat areas due to the Union pull, and there was 2 of them up there. One won by 33, and one was like 17 votes. And so when you look at these numbers, it doesn't take that much. So you take that into account. Then to go into what you were just saying, Ken, Walter and I were talking yesterday or day before, but he recently went to an event, and we try to go to these things and be that voice of hope or inspiration or something. And we're all doing what we can do. And a lot of people don't realize all what we do, but when all they say is there's no point in doing this, then actually, you know what, Walter, why don't you, if you want to, I'm trying to avoid the name of the place, but if you want to explain your take on it, because you had a great way of summarizing your thoughts on it, if you want to opine.
Well, it's not specific to the place that I was at.
Right.
This is something that I hear wherever I go when I'm talking to conservative groups, Republican aligned groups, and it's some variation of. First of all, like 90% of the questions that I get in any Q&A are about election integrity. And I get it. I understand. We should be concerned, deeply concerned about election integrity and the integrity of the ballot and the election system. But what bothers me about it is not that people are concerned. What bothers me about it is that it often feels like the motivation for the concern is providing an excuse to not do the work necessary to actually forward a political campaign. So people will say things like, well, what's the point in all of it? What's the point in campaigning? What's the point in voting? What's the point in trying to get other people to vote when the election system is so rigged and so lopsided? And if that's the question that you're asking, is what's the point? First of all, I don't understand why you took the time out of your day to come to an event. What do you think you were going to get out of coming to a political event that's organized for activists to go out and win political campaigns, if you've already kind of predetermined that there's no point in doing anything about it? But more to the point, your concern, I will listen to your concern all day long if you have a plan for what to do about it. So there are varying different ideas, and kind of like the 2 most competing ideas is one, vote early, which is what the Trump campaign is saying, and what I agree with, that we need to swamp the vote. We need to bank the vote, however you want to phrase it. Let's get those ballots in boxes as quickly as possible. Check voters' names off the lists with the secretaries of state so that the campaigns know who they need to focus their resources on and who they can not bother to hit up again with a text or a mailer or a phone call or a door knock. I think that's the way it ought to be done. There are other people who disagree with that and say, no, we've got these algorithms out there where they can just flip however many votes they want to the Democrat side, to the Biden side. So we need to try to trick the system by voting as late as humanly possible, like 4:00 on election day, in order to fake out the system. And my response to that is, whatever, dude, as long as you vote, okay? Yep. If you want to wait until 4:00, 5:00, 6:00 on election night to cast your ballot, I'm not going to argue with you, but you damn well better get to the polling place and cast that ballot, because what matters is we need to get ballots into boxes. Or if your approach is we need to clean up the voter rolls and get bad voter registrations off the list, awesome. You go do that. if your reaction is, well, we need to sign up election judges to have people have eyes on the ballots and what have you, awesome. God bless you. Go do that. Right. As long as you have a plan, as long as there is some action that you are willing to take that actually forwards the cause, I'll listen to your concerns all day long. What bothers me is the people who have nothing but concern and no solutions, and their only reaction is to just poo-poo what everybody else is doing. Like, if you're not going to take action, then listen to you complain. And Shane and I hung out with a guy a couple of days ago at his home. He's a guy who trains dangerous people in firearms and tactics. And he talked about how, like, Navy SEAL training, one of the things that they look for is the willingness of the recruit to take it all the way, to take the mission all the way. And even you have one of these tests where they have them go underwater and they're like, their arms and legs are bound or something, and they have to tie knots in order to come up. I'm probably getting this wrong.
You're close.
But
yeah.
It's something to that effect. It's like a really difficult underwater test. And the point is, you need to, if you come up for air, you're done. You're out. You're disqualified. And he told this story of this one guy who went down and couldn't quite get there and ended up taking in water, and they had to move in and pull him out and resuscitate him, and he almost died, and they brought him back. And the first thing that he said when he came to was, "Did I tie him?" And they were like, "No, you missed one," or however many it was. And he was so disappointed. He's like, "Oh man, I failed." And they told him, "No, dude, like, you died in service of the mission. That was the point," right? It's like, you were willing to take it all the way. That's what we're looking for. That's a pass. And so that's the same type of mentality that we need to bring to this political fight. Is, don't talk to me about why we're going to lose. Talk to me about what you're going to do, win or lose. That's the type of conviction that we need to be bringing in 2024.
You're muted, Bruce. We lost your audio.
There we go.
There it's better.
Do you guys think that this debate is going to change anybody's mind? And then back up the question with this, with the Democrats kind of swaying. I hear a lot of Democratic backlash against Joe Biden. Do you see any indication that Democrats are swaying towards the conservative vote this year? So if you guys, either one of you, before we have to switch over to the debate, you guys have any comments on that?
I think we saw some of that last night with, or not last night, Tuesday night with Jamal, whatever his last name is, the guy that pulled the fire alarm.
Yep.
In New York. I think it's New York 18 or 16, one of the two, where he didn't make it. And now Corey Bush down in Missouri has the same thing coming early August, I believe. And then Ilhan Omar will have one mid-August here, a primary with Don Samuels. And we'll see how this all plays out. But I do, and that's where I said earlier, if they literally use all these tools that they put in place for this debate to basically silence one side and let the other one flow, I see that as a win entirely, because people are seeing through this. If you look at Scott Presser does a lot of this voter registration, voter outreach, all that. He's been spending a lot of time in Pennsylvania. And so because Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, and Oregon, Washington State, whatever, we all pass laws simultaneously, ironically, that if you're a convicted felon, and even if you're still serving out your sentence, but you're no longer incarcerated, you're on parole or probation, then your voting rights are restored. And what Scott has learned is once they convicted Trump, all these people that are getting out, because he's going to the prisons out there, they see Trump now as one of them, that the government came after them, however you want to like put all that together. And so they see Trump now as one of them. So whatever their plan was, and I think this is why Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo from New York, did that interview last week or 10 days ago, whatever it was. that you all need to stop this. This is backfiring badly because people are not lining up with this. So I do see that overall that there are more and more people. There's independents. There's even some moderate Democrats and a few hard ones that are not. Number one, you got inflation. You got public safety issues that are rampantly going off the charts. You got the whole border crossing, both northern and southern. Literally, that's north and south. Because the northern border is getting crossed more and more now, because they're trying to diffuse some of what's the tension that's on the southern border. And so, like, at some point, these people they must think that they're too dumb to pay attention or something. And I think they're seeing through that. Like, we're not that stupid. We know what you're doing, and we don't like it. So that's my take on it. I think it's swaying minds. The more they objectively go after Trump tonight, the better I believe it'll go. It will be the talking points afterwards. Walter, what do you think?
I mean, it all depends on how aggressively they moderate, right? And I think that really is the variable that's going to dictate how the narrative goes. And I don't know what that magic line is where if they shut off his mic too much or, because everybody's going to be keeping metrics, right? So as soon as the debate ends, we're going to know exactly how many minutes or how many seconds each candidate was allowed to speak and how many times they were interrupted and all of that. And, I'll go ahead and predict right now it's going to be lopsided. The question is, what is the tipping point on those numbers where the narrative that it was fair becomes completely implausible to even the average voter. And so it's CNN gets to decide what the narrative is going to be tonight by virtue of whether or not they let the man talk.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do tonight is we're going to leave the mics on. Everybody's going to have the mics on. We're going to have kind of like a mystery science 3000 or theater 3000 type thing going on here while the debate is going on. So we'll be able to comment, when they're stammering, if Joe Biden is stammering or Trump is, doing what he does best. We'll see what we have as far as time in between. But by all means, please comment when you have a comment there. And I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you, Shane, and thank you, Walter, for hanging out with us tonight. This is really special. So the last time we did this was for the State of the Union address when Joe was so hyped up he couldn't stop yelling at everybody in the congressional chamber. So I'm not sure what we're going to expect tonight, but it sure is going to be interesting for sure.
So one other thought would be, because we only have about 2 minutes before tee off, hopefully, but if Biden goes into one of those long multi-lettered sentences that don't all go together, and Trump just looks at the camera when his mic is opened and says, "Can somebody explain to me what he just said?"
Yes.
I think one of the things that I heard this morning was that because the mic will be off when the other one is speaking, that Trump will take every opportunity is to mumble something to Joe to kind of ag him on and get him rolling on some other subject or something like that. So we'll see how that works out.
There we go.
So Vivek Ramaswamy just tweeted out, and I think this is exactly what I was just saying. He says the question isn't which Trump shows up or which Biden shows up. It's which CNN shows up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a question for.
Go ahead.
Just before you get.
I just want to remind everybody that we're on Rumble, we're on YouTube, and we're on Facebook, and we are manning the chats right now. So anything that you guys put in, and we'll try to go ahead and answer your questions. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so quickly, the Facebook feed, go to the comments section. You click on it, it'll take you to YouTube because Facebook isn't letting me put it together. But I put the link in there so you can still watch it. One quick thing before these guys get going, they're going to talk about nothing for a second. Especially for our two representatives here, as we're going through this, and both people start talking about policies and stuff. I'm curious to see how that affects state politics. So when you guys when something pops up, I'd love your feedback on. This really doesn't help us, or, this would be a help, or, we don't have the money for this, that kind of thing, or what is it? Some of the the good and bad of what their policies actually do at a state level, because that's what affects you sitting out there. So with that, let's get it going.
So Ken, to that, there's supposed to be 2 breaks in this thing, so we'll discuss that when that comes up. Remind me of that.
Okay, will do.
Yeah,
I'm starting with a very light Cosmopolitan tonight.
For sure.
We should do a celebrity death match with those 2, though.
We're live
That'd be
from
fun.
Georgia, key battleground state in the race for the White House. In just moments, the current U.S. president will debate the former U.S. president as their party's
I am really
presumptive
expecting a train wreck,
nominees
guys.
of
So
first
if that's
in American
disrespectful,
history.
that's just what it
We
is.
want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald
I didn't
Trump
realize
in their
CNN and
rematch
Max
for
had
the
a
nation's
relationship.
highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to
If I wear these
facilitate
glasses,
a
they look,
debate between
normal.
the
If I
two
take them off,
candidates tonight.
yeah.
Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the
But you
audience
have
at
seen
home.
that movie.
Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
How are you?
That's a solid gate. Coming out,
Really
he
shaking.
did pretty good.
Yeah.
Did he wipe the
Welcome
booger sugar off,
45th
though?
President of the United States.
He made it to the right
Donald
podium.
Just walk over. Nope. All right.
Interesting they didn't shake hands.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for
Yeah.
being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped
That's
more
on
than
the low end.
30%. What do you
Yeah.
say to voters who feel they are worse off
Thanks,
under
Obama.
your presidency than they were
Much
under
more.
President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. Pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. And all he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach in your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done.
Government
Working class
jobs
people
is
are
not
still in
creating
trouble.
jobs.
I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole
Kitchen
range
table.
of things.
Yeah.
That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we
I was doing great
2
before
million new units.
2020.
We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over.
Why haven't you done any of this yet?
What's left of the
Yeah.
corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem.
He's only had 60 years,
In
Walter.
addition to
Geez,
that,
give the guy a break.
We're in a situation where if you had to look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. Eventually, we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people.
He's coming out swinging.
I can't wait to see what Trump said.
An insulin shot as opposed to $400.
He's just going to go
senior has
wrong.
to pay more than $200 for any
Fake news.
All the drugs they could beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price of around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
I like the price of around the kitchen table.
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. Absolutely. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan.
His tax cuts got us to hire 2 more people.
When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were.
Well, and that's what Trump needs to say, is he needs to just look at the people and say, what was your experience when I was in office?
This decade, had done any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's
Tariffs are a terrible idea. And I can go on about that. 30 years experience with dealing with China.
And he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan. We were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax. and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before. And we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't.
This will be interesting because there's no way Joe can remember what he's saying.
More people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only we're there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent. All of the things he's done, we've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country.
We didn't give him any inflation. No, you just spent $10 trillion and hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of liabilities and shit.
To come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
And Christy Marie, this is a place where we actually talk over them when they're saying bullshit. So if you don't like it, you can go to CNN's feed.
The very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they in fact pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, $1 billion.
Billionaires aren't earners, you dumb fuck. You should know this. You're funded by them.
About his debt, we'd be able to help.
$500 million is nothing in the federal budget.
Right.
Nothing.
But even still, they're not earners. They have asset owners. They're asset owners. They don't earn $3 billion a year in income.
For what I've been able to do with
he doesn't want to tax their income. He wants to tax their wealth.
Excuse me. With
how do you do that? How do you just what do you do? How do you tax Elon Musk's wealth with Tesla? You can't.
If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
What increase the
beat Medicare.
corporate tax rate?
To death, and he's destroying Medicare because.
You just go personally.
All of these people are coming in.
They don't have anything.
Medicare, they're
tax their
putting them on
accounts.
Social Security.
It's illegal, but they can do
Social Security. This
he
man
has
is
no
going to
assets, though.
single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way
it's
he
been
finished
dead for
that
20
sentence.
years.
And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us.
I'll agree with that.
They want.
Look at Biden.
They think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people.
Yep.
What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us.
Yep.
What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is
That's
the
something
first
I can agree with.
presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This
There we
morning,
go.
the court
here we go.
ruled on yet
Quick,
another
change the thing.
abortion case,
Change the
temporarily
thing.
allowing
Change
emergency
the subject so
abortions
that
to
Biden doesn't
continue in
lose it.
Idaho,
Yep.
despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, they're complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back, religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court,
there, so
and they
I don't
happened
know
to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade. and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. You know,
You ever
10 years
wonder
ago
if
or
a
so,
lot of the
they started talking
hardcore
about how many
pro-abortion
weeks
people
and how many
are so pro-abortion because they wish that their parents would have done it whenever they were pregnant with
throughout the
them?
world, the most respected, wanted it
They
brought
don't
back
think
to the
that far.
states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a
Or maybe they hate their
it was
abortion
an end
already,
result.
so,
It was a
yeah.
little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same
Abortion's
thing.
going on all the time.
Texas is
Look at
different.
Chicago.
Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't
You
believe
should
in
have
that.
said like Bill
But I
Clinton.
believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart, but you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
Really? He's saying the
problem
quiet
they
part
have
out
is
loud
they're
again.
radical because they
That's the
will
best part about him.
Am I
take
still
the
loud?
life of a child in the 8th
Better.
month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
States'
Thank you.
rights are great.
President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional
He didn't
scholars
do it.
supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, have him decide
Those abortion laws
whether
are
you're
That almost made sense,
or
Joe.
whether you need
How
help.
can you not see a
The
doctor
idea
within the
that
first 6
states are
weeks
able
when
to
you
do
might
this
be
is a little
pregnant?
like
You can go to the
saying
doctor anytime.
It's nonsense.
Different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered. And
By one of your illegal aliens?
The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that. But here's the deal. There's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses.
You know it. You
brothers
know that
and
one.
sisters.
You know that one,
It's
Biden.
just ridiculous. And they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young
Every
women
state has an
murdered
exemption for
by
that.
the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the
He
world.
needs to stay on the
And
border.
he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women.
We're not talking
And
about.
it's a
we're not
terrible
talking
thing.
about
As far as the
immigration yet.
abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are
There
voting.
you go.
In many cases,
problem solved.
it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote
they did cut
of the people, which is what
Bob is
everybody
right in the
wanted,
comment, the chat
including
there.
the founders.
They
if
literally
knew about
cut
this
Biden
issue,
off.
which
They
frankly
muted his
they
mic.
didn't.
Yeah.
They would have. Everybody
Yeah, they
wanted
cut
it
him
brought
off 'cause
back.
he's
Ronald
rambling.
Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
Kind of a hardball
Roe
question.
v. Wade, which had
Yeah, I'm surprised
3
they're asking that.
trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. Third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians,
The woman and the state?
want the politicians to
Since
be
when does the
ones
woman?
making decisions
You mean the
about women's health
laws?
is ridiculous. That's the last.
He meant
no
woman and
politician should be making that decision.
He already
A
said
doctor
that
should
though,
be
but then he said the women in the
That's
state
how
as
it
well
should be
too.
run. That's what you're going to do.
Yes, the
And
state
if I'm elected, I'm
frequently
gonna
gets
restore
between
Roe v.
people
Wade.
who want to kill people and the people
He
they
can
want to kill.
take
Right,
the
with
life of
laws,
It
yeah.
happens on a regular basis.
the baby
Right.
be in the take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen.
Take him behind the
Democrat or
woodshed. Look.
Republican,
Look at
nobody
that
wants it to
Biden
happen.
face right now.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the
Whoa,
circumstance.
whoa! I
Whose
thought
life
you
is
didn't
in
have a
danger, she's
mic
gonna
while the
die.
other guy was
That's
talking.
the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are
True
not
story.
for late-term abortion. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion.
Gloves are
You
off.
can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, Constitutional Scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years.
You know what? I bet
and it
you he
was
said
taken
this
away
about
because this guy
slavery
pushed
and
through
Jim
very
Crow and shit
conservative
like
numbers on
that
the
too.
Supreme
Whenever those
Court.
were repealed, he was
Takes
pissed off
credit
about
for it away.
those.
What's he going to do?
Yeah,
he's getting over it.
He's making the Stephen Douglas argument.
MAGA
Popular vote.
Republicans, he gets elected.
Exactly.
Republicans control
Exactly.
the Congress.
Not the Stephen Douglas
They
argument.
pass
That's
a
a great
universal
point.
ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative.
For
If you're gonna sign
400
that
years
bill,
in America,
I'll veto it.
blacks and
You'll
women didn't
sign
have
it.
the right to
Thank
vote.
you.
Let's turn
What
now
the
to
fuck?
the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening
There you go,
cities such as
immigration.
New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Say her name.
We
Oh,
worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only
I have the
changed
stats
all of
up,
that,
and they were
but made
steadily
sure that
increasing
we
under
are in a
Trump as
situation
well
where you have
from the
no
CBP.
circumstance where they could come
But Trump
across
never
the
says
border
that.
with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly,
From fiscal
Biden
year
Border
18 to
Patrol
19, it
endorsed me,
doubled under Trump.
endorsed my
It
position.
went from
In addition to that, we
683,000
found ourselves in a
to
situation where when he
1.2
was president, he
million.
was separating babies from
It's
their
gone to
mothers,
13
putting them
million.
in cages. making
Actually,
sure
Ken, you're
that
wrong. It's
the
30 to 40.
families were separated.
Obama put
30
it
to
in
40.
That's not the right way to go.
But either
I've
way,
done
Trump was
since
like,
I've
"Oh, they were the
changed the
lowest
law,
ever." It's like they
what's
steadily
happened?
increased, and
I've
actually
changed
they
it in a way
doubled
that
1 year
now
over
you're
year
in a
while you were
situation
in.
where you're 40%
I thought you were the
fewer
toughest.
people coming across
And then it turned around too, though.
the border illegally. It's
Right,
better than
what
What do you mean it
so
turned around in 2020 when everything was locked down?
Yep.
That's the only time it went down during
Um,
Trump's
the-
reign,
the-
and it didn't
the
even
total
go
issue
down. Fiscal year
to promote
20
him to
was
be
646,000,
Border
with
Patrol
fiscal year 17 was
asylum.
526. So
President
even in
I
2020,
don't know
there
what
was
he
more
said at
people
the
came
end of that
across
sentence.
underneath
I
Trump
don't
than
think
they
he
did
knows
when he
what
first
said
got
either.
in.
Look,
Correct.
we had the safest border in the history of our
Under
country.
Trump.
I know,
All we
under
had to do
Trump.
was leave it.
Yeah,
But I'm
okay.
saying the gas got poured on it when Biden got in there.
I'm
It's
not
kinda
saying
like-
I'm not
It's
saying
like,
it
it's
wasn't.
like when
Open
Hoover
up
did
our
a bunch of
country.
stupid crap.
That are
Right, right,
in
yeah, because
29, and then
People
FDR
are
took it and
offering
kicked it into
mental
overdrive.
institutions
No,
and
absolutely,
suicide.
because
Terrorists. The
in
largest
21
number
it
of
got
terrorists
it
coming
went
into our country
1.9
right
million,
now. All
22 was
terrorists all
2.7,
over the world,
23
not
was
just in
3.2. No, I'm not saying it didn't.
All over the world,
but
they come from the middle earth.
Trump
Look at
always
that
says
pouring
his
in.
was
This guy
so low. He
just
was the
left it
best on
open.
it, but
And
it
he didn't
steadily
even-
increased
You're
under him
also
too.
Because I didn't have legislation. I said, close.
But he won't say that it increased under him as well. That's why
In that
my point.
final
The
couple of
Biden
months
numbers
of my
are much underrated, though.
according to Border Patrol,
Correct.
who is, and by the way, who endorsed
But
me
the point I'm trying to
personally,
make is
I
Trump won't say
that.
he's at fault
They
too.
endorsed me for
Of
president.
course not.
Yeah.
Brandon,
Neither of them will
listen
say it.
to him.
Where from 18
But
to 19
we had
it
the
doubled.
safest border in
Trump won't
history.
say that.
Now we have the worst border in
He was saying
history.
immigration.
And you wouldn't
Immigration
either.
doubled for
And
me
people are
in 1
dying
year.
all over the place, including the people that are coming up.
Let's focus, guys.
President Biden.
We got
The
people
only
dropping
terrorist
off.
who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration killed an Al Qaeda person come in his administration.
Ben Shapiro tweets,
Killed
Trump is
3
showing discipline.
American soldiers.
Biden looks as
Killed
though he's
3
going
American
to die
soldiers.
on the
That's the
air.
only terrorist that's there. I'm
It's
not
true.
saying I'm no terrorist.
I think that's the most true
idea-
thing I've ever heard
Yeah,
Ben say.
We're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are
I can't
living
listen
right
to
now
Trump
in a
talk about
rat's nest.
al-Baghdadi
They're
without thinking
killing our
about
people in New
Shane
York,
Gillis.
in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant violent crime I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens
And
at a level
don't
that we've
forget
never seen
the
before.
mass
And you're
death
reading it
of the
like
people
these three
trying to get
incredible
here
young
as well
girls over the
too,
last
before
few
they even
days.
get here. That's
One of them
insane
I
too,
just spoke to the mother, and we just had
because
a
they're
funeral for
rushing
this
to
girl,
get here.
12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're living an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have
That's
to get
true.
them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're
Yeah,
living.
so
They're
CBP says
living
we're
in
at
luxury
2.2 million so
hotels
far year to
in New
date,
York City and other places.
fiscal year
Our
24.
veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at
That only
all.
goes to
And
October.
he
6 million
doesn't care
over the
about our
last
veterans.
4.
Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care
Oh,
of the
don't get me
VA.
started, bitch.
He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice, Congress, all of the different things I approved.
I'm the greatest on
they
veterans,
abandoned.
really. That's
He
why
had
I
by
can't get
far
into
the
mental
highest,
health
and
more
now
than
it's
once every
gone in
2
less than
fucking
half
months.
because he's
Fuck
done
you.
all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because
All your
I
great
approved
reforms,
it, which
kiss
is
my
crazy.
ass.
But he had so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in.
President
and it's
Biden.
a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off.
Only the veteran thing.
1 million of
See, the veterans are better off.
insurance and
See?
their families.
Bullshit.
Their families.
I have to fucking go to community
Jason
care because the
Warren or
VA can't
Burns
fucking help me
are
more
all
than
being
once every 2
covered now.
months.
And he opposes.
Fuck out of here.
Opposes that. Also,
VA's on a hiring
they have
freeze
great
right now
respect for veterans.
as well too.
My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn
Oh,
pits.
here he
Came back.
comes with here
Stage
he
4
comes
grade
with his
last
son's
I
cancer
was
story.
recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say,
So
suckers
when
and
you
losers. We
are a
had
veteran and
19
you
people
apply
If
for
you're
healthcare,
running
it
against
was never
McCain,
said by
they
me.
send you a
It was
book
made up by
about a
But you're
month and
running
a half
against
after
McCain.
you
Russia
apply,
was made up.
and it
Just
just
like the
says,
51
"Oh, this is all the
intelligence
stuff that we have,"
statements are made
and that's
up.
it.
Just
That's what
the
you
new
get
thing
is a
with the
fucking
15
booklet
economists
saying
are
what you
talking
could
about the
possibly
same
get,
thing.
and it talks about World War
51
II vets in here and Vietnam.
intelligence age. They
Like I
said
give a fuck.
that the laptop
Where's my letter
was
saying,
Russian
"Hey, you can get
disinformation.
care"?
It wasn't.
None.
It came from his son
Zero.
Hunter. It
Thank you,
wasn't
Trump.
Russian disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history.
Is that true?
American history. And they now are in their family.
Chris?
The only sacred
But
obligation
this
we have
is
as
what
a
they
country
do when you
is
get
to care
veterans
for our
health care. They
veterans
give you a
when they come
Is that
booklet.
home
true?
and their families.
This is what they
when
give
go
you
to
is a
war.
booklet.
That's what we're
Did he
doing.
sign it?
That's what the VA
Biden
is
just
doing
said
now.
he-
No.
They're
Biden
doing
just
more
said he
for
did
veterans
more
than
than
ever
Trump.
before in our history.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
We're
so
at-
much.
we're asking you.
They both
Top
have
of the
done
foreign
fucking
policy,
nothing.
I want to begin with Russia's war.
I mean, clearly,
against
you can tell by
Ukraine,
how I
which is
act right now.
now
I
in
need
its
mental
third
health
year.
therapy, and I
Former
can't get in more than once every 2 months.
President Trump, Russian
And that's for a
President
virtual one over
Vladimir
my
Putin
phone.
says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed, and
No, he didn't
Ukraine
sign it.
abandons its bid to join NATO.
Nobody
Are
signed it,
Putin's
not even the
terms
governor.
acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander in chief, if that's what you
I
call him,
can't stand you either.
that we've ever had. They
He's
can't
trolling
stand him.
him hard.
Well, let's get that
He's
straight.
trolling Biden
They like
big
me more
time.
than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what
You
happened.
did
He was
nothing to
so
stop
bad
it
with
either because you
Afghanistan.
sold
It
them the
was
weapons in
such a
2018.
horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. That when Putin watched that and he saw the
I haven't
incompetence,
looked
that
at
he
the
should,
math,
he
and I
should
don't
have
know the
fired those
context.
generals
It'd
like
be
I
interesting
fired the one that you
to
mentioned.
know
And
Millions
so
of
he's got
dollars
no
of military
recourse.
equipment
He should
left
have fired
behind.
those generals.
Ukrainian
No
weapons
general
to the
got
VA.
fired for the
What
most
impact
embarrassing
that would have?
moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars
Weapons
of
to the
equipment
VA.
behind.
What?
We
I
lost
didn't. I'm sorry. I
13
didn't
beautiful
understand what you said.
soldiers and 38
I was saying
soldiers
the
who were
money that they've
obliterated.
sent
And
to
by the way, we left
Ukraine
people
in
behind
various
too. We left
forms, if
American
that had
citizens
gone to the
behind.
VA, I
When
wonder
Putin
what
saw
kind of
that, he
impact
said,
that would have.
you know what?
Well, we would get more than just a
I think
booklet
we
when we
would
sign up for
actually
healthcare.
go in and maybe
Absolutely.
take my. This is
That's
what
what would
his
happen because
dream.
this is
I
what I
talked to him
fucking
about
got.
his dream.
It has
If
my
he
name on it
would
at
have
least. They
invaded
put it to the right person.
Ukraine,
You'd have got 2
never,
booklets.
just
Yeah, I
like
would have got 2
Israel would have
booklets and
never
maybe
been
a fucking
invaded
envelope with a letter in it.
in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all
That's
during
false.
my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
That's true.
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran
Malarkey.
attacked American
Great
troops,
word.
caused brain damage for a number of his troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president.
You did nothing about it when you were vice
He said
president
that
either,
just
when they
had
were
headaches.
doing all the
That's all
fucking
it is.
IEDs and
He didn't do
IEPs and
a thing.
shit.
The attack took place, number one. Number two,
They were the
Exactly.
fucking insurgency in
100,000
Iraq.
Americans and others out
They funded it.
of Afghanistan during that era.
They had their
Number three,
operators in there
military
too.
more
So in a
funding.
situation where
They had their
take a
operators
look
in
at
there
what
too. I saw
Trump
the
did in
shit.
Ukraine. This guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost.
Because he didn't want
they've
it.
lost thousands and
Fucking
thousands.
kidding me? He
of
never
troops,
said that.
500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if
never
come
said
back
that.
to you
Never
for-
said
for
that.
1 minute. I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that
Look at the way he's
Zelensky
looking
comes
at
to
him.
this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying.
Yeah.
And he
the
knows about
money that we're
salesmen.
spending
Yep.
on
He
this
does.
war,
He does.
and we shouldn't be spending. It should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have
Got
that
all
war
that
settled.
money that could have went
People
somewhere else.
being killed.
Yeah,
so
I
many
could have got like a
people
better
so
looking
quickly.
booklet.
military
And I
industrial
will get
complex.
it settled, and I'll get it.
Or better
settled
yet,
fast
money
before
went
I take
nowhere.
office.
Didn't get spent.
President
know,
Biden, you have
yeah.
a minute.
There's that. I could have got a
It's
better
getting
booklet
spent.
though.
It's getting spent.
He's killed
They could
thousands
hire
and
2
thousands
more
of people.
therapists at my local
And he
VA
was
instead of
100% clear.
promoting
He wants
one
to
and then having a
reestablish
hiring
what
freeze
was
and then
part of the
having one
Soviet
less.
Empire. Not just a piece. He wants all of
It's
Ukraine.
hiring freeze in
That's
all
what he
medical
wants.
communities
And then you think he'll stop there?
or lack
You
of
think he'll stop?
available
He-
people.
if he
Right, but I'm
takes
saying like
Ukraine,
when you promote
what he
somebody, you
happens
should probably
before?
fill
What
that
he
slot and they
did-
didn't. So now
what
it's
he
even
happens in
less.
his NATO
Instead of having 2
So if you
therapists
wanna
in a
work,
county of
you ought to find
330,000
out
people,
what he's going to do, because
they only
if
have
in
one.
fact he does what he says and walks away. By the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're
That's
struggling.
That's
a lie.
bullshit.
I'm gonna
Thank you.
look
Let's
that
go
one
to the
up.
Middle East.
That's wrong.
In October,
That
Hamas
was a
attacked
blind
Israel,
lie right there.
killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans.
But the people from CNN, they
Israel's
don't care.
response has killed
They don't care
thousands of
about lives.
Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, straight through the G7 to the Israel.
We are experiencing a
There's just
lull.
3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire. With
I didn't hear
additional
Hamas in
conditions.
there.
The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized a ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just
they cut us off.
stopped.
There we go.
We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world, and so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did Bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been
Hamas isn't one person.
Greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful.
Yes, Larry Hamas.
Certain weapons.
There's no 7th Street.
Centers.
So I'm on the CFR's website right now about Ukraine, and it says out of all the money, 175 billion so far to Ukraine, 34.2 billion has went to Ukraine's budget support for their government.
Maybe more than that, less than us.
69.8 is weapons.
So you got to put up your money like I did with NATO. I got them,
and only 2.9 for humanitarian.
Secretary General.
They put
Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen.
2.9 for humanitarian, 34 for their government.
The money was paid by us. He didn't do that.
And they haven't had an election
You
yet.
got to ask these people to put up the
So
money.
he's actually not.
We're over
Zelensky's
$100
actually not
billion
president
more
anymore.
spent, and it
What's
has
an
a big
election in a
impact on them
dictatorship?
because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them as far as Israel.
Well, it's all the way you look at it.
Hamas. Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, do you have a minute?
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO.
I won't be in NATO either.
The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well.
So the EU has given 82 billion.
In Europe, a major war in Europe. What happens if, in fact, you have?
How does the EU get
go
82
into NATO?
billion,
We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on
to
all.
Ukraine. That's what they've given to Ukraine. The EU has given that much to Ukraine.
Oh, gotcha.
Ukraine.
Oh, I thought we gave it to them.
Move
Sorry.
on to Poland
My
and
bad.
other places.
No.
See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations.
And that was
around
all
the
financial
world
too.
to support Ukraine, including Japan.
82
and
billion
South Korea,
financial, 2
because they
billion
understand
for
that
humanitarian,
this
zero for
kind of
military
dislocation
though.
as a serious threat to the whole world peace.
Germany has given
No major
19
war
billion
has
in
ever been able to
military.
contain just in
It doesn't matter
President
what
Trump, just
you
to
say they're
follow
going
up,
to. It's all
would you
going
support the
to one
creation of an
pot.
Oh
independent
yeah, I'm
Palestinian
just saying
state
though,
in
like
order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I
Pay
said,
your way.
no, I'm not going to
Pay your
support
way.
NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time?
It's a secret.
So if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy.
He's right about that.
That was a
Former
secret
President
meeting.
Trump,
You're not supposed to talk
I wanna
about
ask you
this.
about January
Why the hell are we
You
talking
rallied
about
your
democracy
supporters that day.
when
Some of them
democracy
stormed the
is
Capitol to stop
defined
the
about really what
constitutionally
it is?
mandated counting of electoral votes.
Here comes
As
the Jan
president, you
6 stuff.
swore an oath to, quote,
And
preserve,
we're not in a
protect,
democracy.
and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point we'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him.
Working though. Look at Biden.
You
He's
have
out
80
there.
seconds.
It's
left.
working.
The question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated constitutional oath through your actions and action on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on
You guys
tape
do
with
that?
her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say,
That was
saying,
interesting.
"Oh no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this," because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down. The
Sometimes I
mayor
look
of,
at this
of
podium
DC.
one time.
They turned it down.
Right.
I offered 10,000 because I could see I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up to the Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours.
I didn't get the notice.
3 hours watching, begging.
Did you get the notice?
By
Did you
his
get a
vice
phone call?
president.
Yeah,
and a number
I
of his
did.
colleagues on the
Anybody?
Republican side as well.
I got the
just
notice
said
to
I didn't get a
protest,
phone
but
call.
that's it.
End it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again,
Trump is missing an opportunity here to pivot to the lawfare and election integrity. If you want to talk about threats to democracy, let's talk about the real threats.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people when they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down
Here we go.
many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all the information because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at. Right
There we go.
He did it.
And for what?
It's simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what's going on in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who have been convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows,
And you, sir, are a
occupied
pedophile.
offices, turned over desks.
That's
turned
not
over
even the
statues.
worst of what
The
he's
idea
done.
That those people are
Biden did
bigots.
the 92 crime
Come
bill.
on.
You know how many
Can I ask you
millions
First,
of
the two
families he
debates
fucking
we had,
destroyed
the
because of that
debates we had
shit?
first
How many
time,
millions of
he said,
people
"Will you denounce the
were
president?" He
institutionalized
said, "No, I'll tell them to stand
because
by."
of him?
The idea he's refusing to, will you denounce these guys?
Absolutely.
Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? You denounce the
Him and
people who
Campbell
attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about
Absolutely.
members of the select committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times.
He's convicted of
Should have
more
been convicted
serious
before,
shit
but
than
his
him.
Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse, the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's
They're
done.
all war
He's done
criminals,
horrible
yeah.
things. All of the
Yep.
death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything.
Bare minimum.
We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change the prosecutor.
Yeah,
Have
they
your
literally
son.
impeached Trump for
This
doing
man
that.
is a criminal.
my God.
You're lucky. You're lucky. I did
They
nothing
literally
wrong.
did. Yes,
We'd
they
have a
literally did.
system
Let's
that
not,
was
let's
rigged and
remember that,
disgusting. I
folks.
did nothing wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, President
Trump is a
Trump.
felon
President
because he signed
Biden,
37
you have
different
said-
checks.
I'm coming
Yep.
right to you, sir.
That's why he's a
Oh,
felon.
you want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a
He
minute.
could have signed one check,
The
but he
idea
signed 37.
that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong.
It's literally all you've
never
done,
said
Joe.
that.
Like that
Yeah,
before.
that's
Not
everything Joe's done.
It's normal people.
He just said
There
my
are grandmothers
my-
in prison because of Joe Biden.
Charged with.
Exactly.
Hold on, guys.
How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night
There we go.
while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You
Give it to him, Joe. Give it to him.
Give your
Talk,
minute,
talk
sir.
about
I
Biden's
didn't
first
have
wife
sex
and
with a porn
cancer.
star, number one. Number two, that was a case that started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official at DOJ into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was
Absolutely.
going to damage me. But when the public
100%.
found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. When they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in
They
more
raised
money
$200
in the
million.
last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam. And it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote,
That was well
Donald
said.
Trump and his MAGA Republicans are
The
determined
only
to
way that
destroy
could have been better
American
is if he just said,
democracy.
that's
Do
the
you
threat to
believe that the
democracy.
tens of
Right.
millions
Ooh.
of
Mic drop.
Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
American
The more
democracy.
they know about what
Los
he's
Angeles
done,
County.
yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again.
In Iraq. It
Until
wasn't
I
in
saw what
Iraq.
happened
And
in
it wasn't
Charlottesville,
because of
Virginia.
Iraq.
People
Unless it
coming out
was
of the woods
depleted
carrying
uranium that
You
you and
brought it
fucking
up.
torches
the
and singing
depleted uranium that you and fucking Obama wanted to spread everywhere. That might have gave him turbo cancer.
And the young woman, I spoke to the mother, and they asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones, he said, I think they're fine people on both sides.
Oh, geez, dude, you took that way out of context.
Right.
Way
Yeah,
out
he
of context. I listened to that
way
whole
out of whack.
speech. I listened to that whole freaking video,
carrying swastikas.
and that's way out of
People.
context. You're a fucking
This
idiot.
is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. It's no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that
Well,
story
let me hear
is
it. I want to
totally
hear a rebuttal.
wiped out, because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
They ran the whole interview on in the little.
All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time, and the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential
Well, it's because they're all sworn enemies of him before he even got started.
So this is their break. This is Biden's break right here.
All right. So you asked me to remind you about states' rights, state stuff. What did you take out of you guys, you two state legislators? What did you hear that would affect you in a good way, bad way, or any way at all?
Well, I mean, on the topic of abortion, I didn't like either of their answers on abortion. But clearly with Biden, you're going to get, he's going to try to push some sort of federal preemption into state laws restricting access to the ability to terminate your own child. And that's obviously a big problem, not only for states' rights, but for individual rights, lest we forget that these are the most vulnerable, innocent individuals who have nobody to protect them. The person who's supposed to protect them is their mother, their father, their parents. But in lieu of that, the state has the obligation, just like with any victim, to intercede and protect them from people who do them harm. But one of Joe Biden's top priorities is to make sure that can't happen. The answer that Trump gave was, well, we're just going to leave it up to the states. But it was this kind of ambivalence of, well, I don't really care what the states do. Well, I mean, that I can't imagine, I brought up Stephen Douglas earlier talking about the Douglas-Lincoln debates, where the argument that Stephen Douglas brought to bear in support of expanding slavery to the new U.S. territories was what he called popular sovereignty, which today they call democracy. It's literally the same thing. Yep. The idea that if the people want it, the people should be able to get it. If Lincoln's response to that had been, whatever, maybe, we wouldn't be talking about the Lincoln-Douglas debates. You have to actually bring to bear an argument against doing the evil thing. And that's kind of the big disappointment that I have from the Trump side, at least so far.
I can see that. Shane, what do you think?
Shane, how about you?
I would agree with that part of it. We keep hearing, we got to get away from the abortion debate because it's not a winning argument. And I don't know. As Walter said, it's one of the most vulnerable, and I spend a lot of my time not only on that end of it, but also on the elderly end of it, making sure that they're not being taken advantage of and or harmed, because you're kind of vulnerable on both ends when life is not as easy as it once was, or in the middle somewhere. So I thought that was kind of challenging as a response, but I also am sure he's getting a lot of stuff plugged into his head from many, many people. And I'm not trying to justify it by any means. I mean, he's got to be his own person. Walter and I, we get told things all the time. And then yet we get on the floor and we can take all the advice we get. And then it's up to us to do with it what we choose to do. So that's at the end of the day, we are the ones with the certificate of election, and it's our call. So I don't know. I do want to ask a question though. Was the video like sketchy for everybody, or is it just my internet?
Yeah.
It was
okay.
No, it's probably pretty heavy with
Bruce.
amount of bandwidth and stuff that everybody's using across the board. So usually the audio comes out pretty good.
Bruce, you're actually kind of sketchy. You're in and out when you're talking, so it must be something right on your end.
It might be your internet.
Your bet, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, to see if it was CNN,
than white
making it sketchy.
families.
Right.
Mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes.
That was a quick break.
And Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate.
Doesn't take
of
long
white
to give a
Americans.
shot.
Don't forget to mention that Black babies are disproportionately aborted.
More progress.
Yeah,
there's that too.
Progress, number one. Fact of the matter is, there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time.
2020, more historically Black businesses were burnt down in Minneapolis.
That's true.
And went out of business because a lot of
Very true. I've seen a lot of them.
And no response for them for help.
Right. Collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. You're going to make sure.
What would also cut those costs in half is if you stop locking up all their fucking dads for dumb shit.
Okay, so just for you guys' context, there's a proposed law change. It's up to public comment right now. 93 new regulations on individual home health care or daycare providers. Many have already quit just based on the proposal.
Wow.
93 new regulations.
And that's going to hit the Black community as well too, because a lot of them will do it on community-based shit.
Yep.
Oh no, hell! Let's go underground at that point, which we did during COVID.
You get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home, so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provide it.
Let's raise the cost of a home due to regulation, and then we'll give out grants to those that vote for us. I love that idea.
And then they'll lose their homes because we learned that if you can't afford to get the home, you're going to lose it.
If they paid their bills for 10 years.
No, Walter and I saw this year. It's kind of my wheelhouse.
Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President.
We're going to do a lot for Black families,
and he caused
not just all
inflation.
families.
He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody.
You caused the inflation too,
They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't.
You better bring up immigration, displacing Blacks in the
tripled and quadrupled.
Yeah,
they can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is
because the $7 trillion or more didn't kick in yet.
Scam and all of the other, all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big skill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now. And it could be 18 It could be 19 and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy.
50% unemployment.
That's why there's no inflation.
Yeah, but he didn't. He
There were no
decimated
jobs.
it because of the
Provided thousands
lockdowns.
of millions
Yes.
of jobs for individuals.
Before that, no.
He literally just said there was no
Make sure
inflation
that
when
they
he
have
took over. That's
They
the
have
shortest thing
covered
he could have
with
possibly
the
said.
ACA
And he
has
also
increased
said 50%.
and make sure
And look
that
at the way he was
Hey,
squinting.
$8,000 per person in the family.
He's getting
Get written
angry.
off for health care.
This state's
Yeah.
This guy
devastated
wants to
the
eliminate that.
economy.
They
We
tried
only
Tired.
have, what, a half
He wants
hour
to
left
get
of
rid
this
the
thing?
ACA again.
Yeah.
And they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops.
That's
We're
funny.
They
providing
took
for
more police
equity-
off the
equity
street,
and
dumbass.
leadership.
Exactly.
People have
Defund the police and
shot.
mandates of
There's
vaccines.
a lot going
Absolutely.
on, but inflation, he
What a bunch of lies.
tremendous amount
Well, they're politicians. So.
in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023
Which is a
was the
fallacy.
hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the
Okay,
country
here
are
we go.
confronting the
Summer.
devastating effects of
In recorded
extreme
history, you mean the last
intensifying
100
wildfires,
years
Fake news.
almost.
stronger
Right.
hurricanes,
Yeah.
and rising sea levels.
In the last
Former
100
President
years, it's
Trump
been hot.
used
Okay, what
to
about the
end
last
his
1,000?
opponent's
135 years.
climate initiatives,
Probably
but
150
will
years.
you
Yeah.
take any action?
Yeah, you know,
as
you started
president
it, right,
to
Bruce?
Let's go back to what he said about police.
Yeah. Ice
How
cores.
close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost
true.
every police group. And what he's done to
Yeah.
the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s,
Yes.
we can't forget
Go
that.
into the 92
Super
crime bill. Go
predators
into
was
it.
his name.
Dig
And he
into
called
it.
it to him,
Price
and they're
is
taking
expensive.
great offense at
Our
it. And now they
priceless.
see it happening.
Hold on.
But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically
Yes.
black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job.
Get to the
Great
question,
senator
dude.
from South Carolina. He came to me
You
with
had
the
your
idea, and it
rebuttal.
was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
No.
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever. And
Flint
we
was
did,
still fucked
we
up
were
under you,
using
dude. You can't say
all
that.
forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of
Oh, wow.
contributing
150 million?
that
That's it?
they
You
have
gave
to
200
build
billion to
these
Ukraine.
laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. You just
That-
have the money,
whoops.
but now they'll be
That's
able
more
to get
important,
those
right?
jobs in high
Yeah.
tech. We're in a situation
Education
where
is
the
so important.
idea that
Why don't you
he
flip
is
those numbers?
claiming to have done something that had
Well,
cleanest water.
When he
Cleanest
says
water?
stuff like
He hasn't
any
done a
black
damn
student
thing
can
for
do
the
any as good as any white
Yeah, let's-
student,
Out of the
What'd you
Paris
do for
Peace
Flint?
Accord, Climate Accord, I immediately
Bad.
joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, where there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
Biden, what'd you
Please
do for
do.
Flint,
Paris
Michigan?
yeah.
Accord
Neither one of them did shit,
was going
honestly.
to cost us $1
Palestine,
trillion,
Ohio.
and China nothing,
Yeah.
and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a
This
ripoff
is
of
true.
the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it
Not
was,
one
it
president
was a
has done anything for
disaster.
Flint.
But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin
That's
down
right.
for the seniors. I took
That's
care
true.
of the seniors. What
Yep.
he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people, but we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get us under control.
He's
One of the
getting
largest
tired.
polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By
He just said that we're not
important.
important.
And he said we're the largest polluters in the world. That's fucking a lie.
Also a pure last.
America sucks. Biden 2024. That's
Yeah.
the motto.
Just like Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company cannot have it. And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make
Well,
the
it's
very
going
wealthy
away every
begin
year
to
because
pay
of
their fair
inflation
share.
anyway.
Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they go. I've read that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Wealthy have wealth,
that one
not
enough will keep
income,
it
idiot.
solvent, but the
There's
biggest
a
thing
difference
is
between income and
defeat
wealth.
this man because
They
he
also
wants to
don't
get rid of
withdraw
Social
from it.
Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security
Exactly.
and Medicare both times. And
I had to get rid of
if
it
you look
completely.
at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage than ever before. Now, AC, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing allows them to have that insurance
That's an older
is the
Obama
fact
argument.
that they, in fact, are part of the ACA.
With the
by
Affordable
way,
Care
the
Act,
other
there's
thing
no
is,
reason anybody
we're in a
doesn't.
situation where we talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants another $8,000.
My
So
insurance.
anybody
I
making
didn't get
under
to keep my doctor.
$70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000.
You paid off college tuition.
He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. So many other things too. And
Look
we
at him.
mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid.
They're all
They're
getting
putting them
work
in our
permits and
hospitals.
paying their
They're
fucking
taking
taxes.
the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back.
That was
I've
hardcore.
never seen such anger in our country before.
On that, the number one place all the aliens go for medical care is the VA.
I told you before.
They can move to the front of the line, in front of the veterans.
He acknowledged that.
Wow.
He fired
Well
that.
established.
That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged.
Once this is over, we'll get into that
He was the
later.
one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
Oh,
President Biden, thank you
159
so much.
people
Let's
said
turn
it.
to the cost of
So it must be
child care,
true.
which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good.
Childcare.
And if he said that, that's why he made it up. We have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in his country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election,
Statistically, they're not going to vote for him, Brad, either.
Chance, not even a chance of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He's the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We're the finest military in the history of the world. The finest in the history of the world.
The finest because we've lost everything in the last 25 years.
Nobody.
Stand up.
We have pride flags now and transgenderism.
Worst presidents. I wasn't
Besides
joking.
that, that does make us top flight.
159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians. They've had meetings.
Flight if you're doing the 30,000 foot like phone moment. But yeah.
I like how he's saying 159 people said that he was the worst.
Of American history. That's a fact.
Okay.
That's not conjecture.
That's tens of dozens, Chris.
They're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is knowing to deal with child care. He did virtually nothing in child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability.
Hey, remember when we didn't need to talk about child care because a dude could provide for his family?
And we should encourage businesses.
Or Walter, remember when you could just like drop your kids off at your neighbor and then you just conveniently pay them for their time?
Yeah.
We have
without them
Poland, we have
required
other
to be have
things
like
that
14
they
different
raise
licensing
because what
things
he's done
and
is so bad.
regulation forms to fill out
And
because they had the
I'll show you. I
school
will show
lunch
you. And they
program
rate me
or
one of the
what have
best.
you.
Okay, and if I'm
Right.
given another 4 years,
Remember
I
when
will be
one
the best.
guy
I think
with
I'll be
one
the best.
job could support
Nobody's ever
one family,
created
and you
an
didn't have to
economy
have both
like us.
spouses with
Nobody ever
multiple
paid
Exactly,
jobs?
taxes
right?
like us. He's the only one I know. He wants
Right,
to raise your
right.
taxes
Yeah.
If your
Bruce
if
is
your
the-
neighbor,
times. He
if your
wants to
neighbor
raise
lost
everybody's
their
taxes
spouse, then
by
you
4
would
times. He
all
wants
come
the Trump
together and
tax cuts
help.
to expire.
Right.
So
I
everybody,
mean,
including the
and
two
we
of
would
you, are
just
going to pay
take care
4
of
or
each
5 times.
other
Nobody ever
without
heard of this
child
before.
tax
All
credits,
my
really.
life, I grow
So you're
up
going
and
to
I see
charge us more
politicians
taxes,
talking about
and then
cutting
you're going to say
taxes.
that we get a
When we
child
cut
tax
taxes,
credit
as I said,
if we
we get
qualify
more
for what
business.
you
Apple
presented
and all
to
these
us at the
companies,
end of it,
they were
whatever it may be.
bringing money back
Exactly.
into our country.
Yeah, but the
Instead of
thing
tax
is that
credits,
that
how about lower
Everybody
taxes?
knows it.
President Biden?
What a
right, but the thing
concept.
is that time that you guys are talking about, Bruce is the oldest one here, and it was before his time, though. So
No, not really.
Oh, no, I'm definitely talking about my dad. I mean, my dad could do it. I couldn't, but he could.
I did it, and it was the hardest thing in the world, and we struggled and suffered and scraped for many, many years.
And you did it recently
I
too.
did it, and I'm still doing it. And it's the hardest thing that I can do
And
right
I
now.
did the same thing. I kept Angela home for
and all the things that were important.
up
Number two, he's in
until
a situation where he talks
I don't
about
know.
how he has
Daughter was
not
in
raised-
6th or
he-
7th
he
grade, and
somehow
then
helped
because
middle
she wanted to
class.
be a stay-at-home
Middle
mom,
class
she
has been
wanted to run and do
devastated.
everything. And then
Now
the
they're
job
gonna
she did
give
take
tax
was
credit of $5
half-time,
trillion
and
over
it was
the
at the
next 10
school,
years,
and
which
it
is
was
gonna
they
fundamentally
gave her the
bankrupt the
latitude.
country.
So
We
when
have the
daughter was
largest
not at
deficit of
school,
any
she was
president
not
in
at
American
work.
Right.
history. Number
So
one.
it worked
Number
out fine. She
two,
went and did
you have
something.
not, in fact, made
And
any
then
contact,
she would
any
bring daughter
any
home because they're in the same effing
progress
building.
with
Right.
China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
It was the
President Biden.
highest. You lost
Thank you,
I haven't
President
really
Biden.
seen
Let's
Biden really
discuss an
slumber
epidemic
really
impacting
bad
millions
yet.
of Americans. that
No.
both of you
What's
have made
nice,
a
I
top
noticed though,
priority in your
when he
first
says thank
term,
you, President
the
Biden,
opioid
Biden's just like, oh,
crisis.
thank
For
God, and
both
just
of
stops
you,
talking.
The number
Thank you, President Biden. He's
of
just like,
overdose deaths in this country has gone up.
There's
Under
no
your
mutes
term,
yet.
It went up. Under your term, it has
I
gone
mean, for the
up.
most part.
Former
Yeah.
President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are
Close
struggling
Biden's
to get
border?
the treatment they need?
That should be the first
To
comment.
finish
yeah,
up,
that's where it's coming.
we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China.
Dude, just
He
answer
gets
the
paid by
fucking
China. He's a
question,
Manchurian
man.
candidate. He gets money from
Right.
China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed
true.
on China.
He should
never
have
took
turned the
them away.
tariffs
He can't
off.
because it's too much money. It's
The tariffs
tremendous.
are
And we
terrible.
saved our steel industries, and there was more to
Can
come.
debate that one
But he
later.
hasn't done that.
Yep.
He hasn't
It's
cut
caused
the
more
tariffs
inflation than
because
some of the
he
other
can't,
stuff he's
because
talking
it's
about.
too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with
I don't
China.
see how that's
China's
possible
going
when
to
you
own
spend
us.
$7
If we
trillion
keep
in 1
allowing
year.
them
What about
to do
fentanyl,
what they're
dude?
doing
What
to
about
us
the
as
new
a country.
fentanyl? Come
They
on.
are
What
killing
about
us
the
as a
fentanyl guys?
country, Joe,
Talk about the
and you
drug
can't let that
trafficking.
happen.
Back
You're
on
He
track.
doesn't
destroying
care
our
about
country.
fentanyl. How are you
Jesus.
going to make America great again if
President
you
Trump,
don't kill the weakest
7
ones?
seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are
Good,
struggling
he
to get
called
the
him out on
treatment
it.
they
Good
need?
for you.
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost
That's not
3
true.
years
Bullshit.
of like nobody's ever
That's
had
bullshit.
before,
Bullshit.
any country in every way. And then we had to get tough, and it was the drugs pouring across the border were it
Under you,
started to
yes.
increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways.
Yep.
But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery.
Yeah,
that can detect
Apparently he hasn't- well, he never
2018.
comes to California.
all over everything.
He never comes
In
to
20
California.
In
It costs a lot
2018,
of
it
money.
went down,
That was
according
part of his
to the
treatment together.
NIH.
It's bipartisan warrants and deals.
Then it went back up.
2018.
Fentanyl machines,
Yeah,
more
2018. There you
people
go.
detect drugs.
That was the only
more
year it went
numbers
down.
Because I
of
trust the
agents, more
NIH.
numbers of
Got it.
all the people
Yeah.
at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to
Sign
make
the
sure
fucking
we don't have
executive
the
order then, dude.
technology to
Sign
put
every
it
other
together.
executive order.
That's what we have to do. We need those
Why don't you sign it?
machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world?
I'm surprised they're asking this.
So am I.
First of all, I spent half my career being criticized as being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest.
Oh, so you've been at this for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
60
this
Hey,
years.
what'd you do with that 50 years, dude?
I've turned around this horrible situation you left
Thank
me.
you, Walter.
As I said, 50 million new jobs.
By the way, how do you get an extraordinary net worth by doing nothing but elected office for 70 years?
No kidding.
That's why you gotta make those backroom deals with Ukraine.
That's what your son is for, Walter. Just sell them off.
22 LLCs. Who has 22 LLCs here?
In the market. We invented those chips. And
He
we
has a
lost
sweet Corvette,
because
though.
we were sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas.
I've seen better
And
ones.
then bring home a product. So I went to South
Not
Korea.
bad, though.
I
We were
convinced
I'll
them
do
to
that.
Just had a hot
invest
lunch, so we saw
billions of
lots of
dollars
better
here
ones.
in the United States.
None of them
We
were
are-
full of Coke,
Guess
though.
what?
We are talking to
Fabs, they
Ken
call
Madden,
them,
who's
that
got a thing about
to
old classic
build these
cars.
chips.
So
Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's
That is one of the
billions,
things that
about
Shane and I
$40
deal
billion
with is the
being
assumption
invested and being built
that because
right
we're
now in the United States,
politicians,
creating
we've got
significant
some
jobs
kind of
for
grift
Americans
that,
all over
pays
from
us a
all over
whole
the
lot.
world.
It's like, no, not at this
President Biden,
level.
you have 40
Not at the state
seconds
legislator
left.
level.
Would you like
Nobody's
to add
coming up with
Yeah,
bags full of cash
and I
offering
agree
us
that
anything. We're not that important.
Not yet. Right.
you know, if we were a juror on Peter or Future, we could have picked up 120 grand with a promise of another 120.
Yeah, that's true. That was true. Did you hear about that one, Carcos?
We'll get into that when this is done.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll like this one, Chris.
Oh, this is like funny.
We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world.
He's still not really stumbling that bad, though.
And everybody
No.
trusts us, all of our allies. And
He's doing all right.
We never keep our word.
Those who he
Nobody
calls
trusts
up
us. Are you
Kim
fucking kidding me?
Jong-un
We've never
says
kept our word in the
nothing is
existence of our
too important,
goddamn fucking
They
country.
don't want to screw around with this.
Thank you. For President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to
Please say
serve?
something funny.
Look at the difference between
Tests,
him and I.
Tests, I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. I go through the first
Love it.
5
He should.
questions. He couldn't do it.
Look at him.
But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club
Crazy.
championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see
I love that
is
answer.
6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 35 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is. And
He is declining.
He's under. Yep, he's under his skin now.
I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
Your handicap sticker?
Oh, by the way,
You got his handicap sticker when he's
Look
vice
at Trump.
president.
Trump is cracking up.
He's laughing.
you can
Oh,
do it.
listen to this.
That's the biggest line. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
You're handicapped, all right, dude.
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
Let's
let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about
Dude, if Trump would have said, yeah, you got your handicap sticker back 20 years ago.
all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear.
Please bring up all the
But
Democrats who
answer is,
denied 2016.
Well done.
Yep.
They are free, and I want that more than
On
anybody.
the
And
J6
I'll
thing,
tell you
well
something.
done.
Yep.
I wish
Well
he was a
said.
great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I
This
wouldn't
is
have been his
great.
political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, a required response. The idea, I can't think of a single
Your eyes
major
don't open
leader
up
in the
like
world
this
who wouldn't trade
unless
places
you're
with the
jacked
job I've
up.
done, what they've
Yeah.
done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war.
5 didn't apply.
Go to Ukraine.
Item over there. So we don't have item over here.
Poland, Hungary.
Article 5 doesn't apply to Ukraine because they weren't in NATO.
Then you have a
Right.
war.
Exactly.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might,
Jesus.
Russia,
Question, dude.
they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. Not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever.
Yeah, it's going to hurt him if he doesn't
He's going to
get this
take
election
Ukraine.
thing.
And you asked me a question before. Would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war.
Answer
He
the
said, I will never
question.
settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities
We already
with the
heard
golden domes that are
His answer to the election
all
question
because of
should
him
be,
and
I
some
already
decisions.
respected the results
Russia
of the
would have
election. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
exactly.
president.
President Trump, the question
Yeah.
was, will you accept the results of the election,
Good follow-up.
regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and
No.
good election,
wrong
absolutely.
answer.
I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed to the courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there was all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back.
What? Oh, see?
CNN debate.
They should have let him go in that one.
Looks like we're going overtime, guys.
Looks like a going closing comments probably at the wrap of this thing.
Right.
Well, I wish that Trump would stay on track, man. And I just wish you would stay on track with the freaking answers,
Right,
man.
right.
Answer the fucking question, dude. There's nothing that disturbs me more or pisses me off more than when you're asking a question and you don't get a fucking answer.
Right.
That's what kills me about politics all the time. It's this non-answer crap, dude. It's just like,
okay, but you got, in all fairness, there's a lot that was said right before that, and you got to back up to that to answer it, and then you do get down a rabbit hole in that. I get that. It's not easy to do. Walter's much better at it than I am, to be honest, because I get on a rabbit hole and I just go. And where Walter can stay on mental task, and I mean that as a compliment to Walter. And I've never seen anybody like him who can like just literally run with no notes in front of him. I mean, maybe a little bit, whatever it may be, but he can go and just stay on that focal point where I get little ideas that pop in my head, or somebody might text me and I look down and then I think, oh, and then I'm off on another little tree branch.
Yeah, I mean, if it had been me, I would have started off by saying, look, first of all, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, it's common practice to just pivot to what you want to say, regardless of what the question is, and it's actually wise to do that, especially if the question is obviously
loaded,
just meant to bait you into something that you're not going to perform well at. But the way I would have handled that particular question as Trump is I would have said, "That's a great question. I want to answer it, but first I have to address what he said, and then address it." But then come back around and say,
right now.
Why are you on the conference call during the
what we're doing right now?
Shane's getting the other.
It's all good. He got muted. It's all good.
So at any rate, so then you come back around and what you say is, listen, am I going to accept the results of the election? Of course I am, just like I did the first time. Questioning the electoral process, exhausting every legal avenue to ensure that we had a fair, safe election is not the same thing as failing to abide by the electoral results. I am not in the White House right now.
Yep.
And of course I'm going to abide by the outcome of the election, but I'm damn well going to make sure that I exhaust every effort to ensure that that election was fair to the American people, because each and every American citizen has the right to have their ballot counted. And to the extent that we're having fraud, to the extent that that is happening, even if it just happens once, that as an American citizen, denied their fundamental civil right, and that's not acceptable to me.
And
That's all I would have had to say.
He essentially said that as well, too. Not as well as what you did because it's Trump, but like he essentially did say that. He said, like, yeah, if it was legit, yeah, but it wasn't. There's all this fraud, and I'm not the president. I'm running again for it. Like he essentially said what you said, but not as eloquent.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And it also provides you. It also provides you an opportunity to pivot to the lawfare and to talk about real concerns with the electoral system. Because with that point that Biden and the Democrats keep making that, oh, none of the courts thought that your complaints were valid. Yeah, that's because you have made fraud illegal, or you have made fraud legal. You've made fraudulent tactics part of the process.
Yeah,
we've made significant progress in the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes.
Bullshit.
And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did,
he's right about that.
For example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare to
Biden didn't end them.
For the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation.
No president, all the way down to Clinton, has done anything about it.
President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and
No,
Aaron
stay with
Burnett
us because
start
we have
now
actual
on
full
CNN.
analysis of the
Yeah.
debate instead of just an anal cyst of the debate.
So that was
I want to
it.
thank each and every one of the listeners, and most of them on X. We got 440 some odd listeners over on X right now, and just impressive. And I wanted to let you guys
Good
know
night.
that hey, we have a morning show called the Weathered View. It's going to be great. So we're going to recap it tomorrow morning amongst all of us. And this has been great. So let's talk about it. What do you think, Shane or Walter? You guys chime in. Let us know what you think.
Kind of what Trump just wrapped up with, and this is something I wanted to get back to, and I don't see your name in there, but on the VA thing, one of the things Trump did do when he was president, saying that you can go to any hospital and the VA will pay for it. And yes, there's some little hurdles you got to learn how to jump through. I did this with my dad late last year. There's a small window, and I just did one last night or the night before, whatever it was, on a similar situation where, doesn't matter what hospital you go to, the VA will pay for it. That was one of the greatest things. He also did sign right to try. If you're terminally ill and you going down in flames, if you will, that if you believe there is something that will be beneficial to you, then he signed into law. And then actually a former colleague passed it in Minnesota. And then he's the one that took it to Trump back then and got him to sign it. What the hell do you have to lose?
Right.
And so he is factually correct on that. There are things that I could criticize Trump on, by all means, but I believe that there's a lot of really, really good things. And to the gentleman that is not getting his mental health care once every 3 months, if you'd like to talk offline, I could certainly reach out to people and see who I know.
Right.
Walter?
Well, to that real quick. Real quick to that. So right to try was good. However, it brought in the COVID vaccination debacle. That's the downside of it. Right to try is great. The VA situation, I have a urgent care bill that the VA told me to go to urgent care. I have a bill that's in my credit now with creditors calling me because the VA don't fucking pay it. The situation with me not being able to get in. So I, with the VA, they're like, oh yeah, we can get you in. Your next appointment will be a month and a half, 2 months away. So I said, oh, could I go to community care? Right? Because they all say, oh, like what Trump just said, you can get the community care, right? So I was like, oh, can I get community care? So you know what they did, right? Is 2 days before my appointment, that was a month and a half spread apart from the previous one, right? They canceled that appointment that I was supposed to go into on the 17th. And they canceled it and said, okay, well, we'll keep on touching base with these people about community care and we'll let you know. So after about 3-ish weeks, I get a letter in the mail right here that says, oh yeah, you've been approved for community care. Here's your referral authorization number from the VA. As you can see, that's from the VA, right? So and so here's their phone number. Go ahead and call them and take care of that shit yourself, you motherfucker. The thing is that when you're 37 years old like I am, the VA goes like this to you. Your father, he's older. So the VA says, come on in. Every time I go to the VA, I see nothing but older people in there, which is great because they need fucking help more than I do because I take care of myself. I'm younger, I'm more vibrant, all that shit. But whenever I walk in, ever since I got out in 2008, every time I go to the VA, they say, who the fuck are you? I got to show them all these. I show them my DD-214 and they still say, we have no record of you in the VA system. I say, are you fucking kidding me? I go down to my local VA rep and he's like Biden, fucking all got his goddamn mind. They put in a fucking another situation to try to get me in to see medical stuff and stuff like that or whatever. My general doctor's okay, but he walked into the room, didn't put any sanitizer on his hands, shook my hand, Then he was doing all kinds of stuff, checking me out and all that kind of fun stuff or whatever. He coughed into his hand, and then a couple minutes later shook my hand as he walked out the door. The VA is just as bad as it was. This was just over 3 months ago. The VA is just as bad as it was in 2008 when I got out. When I was going to mental health services, I had to go an hour away from my house because they didn't have a clinic up here yet. The VA is just as bad as them, because then I went down for 2 different sessions. And at my second session, they said, well, it seems that your adjustment disorder has gone. You're perfectly fine. And you can't have PTSD because you weren't in direct combat. So if you want to keep coming back, feel free. But you don't really need to come back if you don't want to. That's what they fucking do in the VA, unless you're a Vietnam vet or you're older than that. When you're young like me, they say, go fuck yourself. And this is my go fuck yourself letter right here. And like I said, when you sign up for the PACT Act, when you signed up for that, this is what you get. That's it. I signed up for the PACT Act 6 months ago. This is what you get. A good fuck you that says, hey, if you went to World War II, you get this. Oh, were you exposed to Agent Orange?
Okay.
Nothing.
Again, I think that's a conversation for another place and time, because we're trying to talk about what we had just tonight. But
correct.
I will tell you that, number one, yes, my father is much older than you are.
Right.
But no, he did not get good treatment. It took a lot of doing to get it somewhere else. So your generalization is not a fair assessment in that regard.
Okay.
Because it took a lot to get him or get proper treatment, which actually went outside of the VA eventually. So.
Right.
I don't know. We don't need to belabor this because we're trying to belabor the
right. But Trump didn't fix shit, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Well, let's
Trump didn't fix shit. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Is that Trump said that he fixed the VA and he fucking didn't.
Yeah, we will agree. We will agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Walter, what was your take on the debate? What's your comments and your opinions going forward?
Well, I think the issue of the VA is one example of many that Trump could highlight going forward of kind of that America First idea, right? The idea of why are we spending so much money, both beyond our borders with foreign aid to Ukraine and what have you, but then also domestically on supporting the illegal population and doing nothing to protect citizens and residents who lawfully reside in this country from the predations of that population, but also from the economic impact. Those two sources of money, and again, I haven't done the fiscal analysis on this, but I got to imagine if you just took what we've given to Ukraine and what we're giving to illegal immigrants, and you put that into the VA, I don't know, they'd probably have like nano probes that could go into your bloodstream and
it'd probably be awesome
or whatever, you know.
It would be awesome.
But I think that theme is really what kind of rose to the surface tonight. Biden is obviously a disaster. Twitter, understanding that the Twitter algorithm is probably putting a lot of favorable stuff in front of me because it knows who and what I am and how I think about things. But I didn't see a lot of Democrats spiking any footballs tonight.
No.
In fact, I saw panic from the few Democrats who I have in my feed. And I think the winning message really is, I mean, America First as a brand has kind of been successfully tainted by the Democrats in the mainstream media. But the idea that underlies America First, the idea that your government that you pay for should serve you and not other people, that idea resonated deeply tonight. And Trump was so much more disciplined than I've ever seen him before.
Yeah, he was.
Perfect? Not at all, but he was so much more disciplined than I've seen him before. And Biden was just an absolute disaster. I think that, if the election were held tomorrow, we'd be in good shape.
Ken, what about you, bud?
So my thoughts on this are, it was about exactly what I figured. We'd learn nothing. There'd be no gotcha moments that were really of anything. But what I was more watching for is it's the Nixon Kennedy thing. If you listened to the Nixon Kennedy debates, Nixon won. If you watched it on TV, Kennedy won because he was better looking, smart looking, and this is where Trump did a really, really good job tonight. He was calm. He wasn't condescending to the old man, and the old man, well, while he did an okay job for what we expected, if we had expected a regular presidential debate, we would have looked at what just happened there as a complete disaster for Joe Biden because he come off like an old man. And, they did ask him the question, you're going to be 86 when this is over. You're going to be good? And he's like, yeah, whatever. And they asked Trump the same question, which is a fair question to both of them. They're both old. And Trump answered it very well. He's, I take a cognitive test. I took 2. He won't take 1. I mean, those are great points. And I think more than anything, that's what it comes down to a lot of people, because most people don't know shit from Shinola when it comes to the actual policies. If they want to think Trump's a racist, they think Trump's a racist, even though he doesn't have a racist bone in his body from what I've seen in the last 35 years of watching his career. And, I think that is just, here's a guy that is old, but still very virile and healthy. And here's another guy that's in massive decline that you can just watch. I mean, from 4 years ago to today, he's a different human being. And we've all had grandparents or somebody that we know that have in that decline. And people on the left are, a lot of them in just complete denial about it. But I still think that the powers that be in the party just needed to have this done so that they can put somebody else in place. I don't know who that would be. The only person I can see that they could put in would be Trump, would be Michelle Obama. But I don't know that she's willing to take the pay cut to be president. So that's kind of what I take from tonight.
Yeah, Chris, on to you. So besides the VA stuff, what did you see in the debate that you noticed and that you want to comment on?
Yeah, and apologize to Shane. I didn't mean that fire at you. I meant that fire at Trump and the system. But in regards to this debate, I mean, it's exactly what we thought it was going to be. Biden only had the canned responses that they've been trying to throw at Trump for forever, most of which are usually clips taken out of context or just like they're all taken out of context for the most part. And the part that really got me is when they start debating over certain things like the deficit, which I chimed in a little bit about that. There was no deficit when I was in, and then I handed over to him. Now it's ballooned. There was no inflation when Trump was in, and now it is when Biden. Well, it's because he didn't kick in yet. And then Biden had a good point. He's like, when I came in, the economy was flat on its back with 50% unemployment. It's like, yeah, that's because of the COVID situation. Trump made a lot of bad fucking mistakes. He won't own up to any of them. He actually says that it was the best. And that's my biggest problem. That's why I jumped off the fucking Trump train about 2017. Is because, yeah, like every politician, minus you two guys, I don't know you guys, but in general, every politician, they'll always hype up small, minor achievements and downplay and ignore any failures and never accept responsibility for them. So both of those guys were right that Biden's inflation did go crazy, but that was because of Trump's trillions of dollars that were created out of thin air because he locked down the economy and then still wanted to stimulate it at the same time. The stock market was so great whenever he got out because of all the money that was coming from the federal government to the corporations where they could do stock buybacks. People forget that. And then at the same time, Biden was right because, yeah, the economy was flat on its back whenever he came in because Trump made bad mistakes with the thing, right? Before 2020, things were going great. I mean, we were looking at, I got the CBP enforcement stats right here. Okay. Yeah. The total enforcement actions in 2017, 18, and 19 under Trump, they were lower than what Biden had. However, they steadily increased. And like I was saying earlier, from 2018 to 2019, they doubled from 683,000 to 1.148 million. But yes, Biden has 2.7 million in 2022, 3.2 in 2023, and 2.2 as of right now. And yes, that's a lot of other things. One thing too is that, Trump was talking about, they're coming in, all this stuff, they're getting on Social Security, they're going to destroy Social Security. The thing is, though, is that most of these guys are getting work permits because of the worker shortage that we had. especially in the low range stuff. And so the actual, I would gamble that the tax, what do they call it? No, what do they call it? The tax doles, how much they take in every year off taxes.
Revenue.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Revenue.
How much they take in every year, I would gamble that is going to be at its highest ever in 2024 because of those people coming in and getting work permits.
You're assuming that these people are all getting jobs and work permits. They're not.
60% of them probably.
I don't think it's 10% of them that are coming in. Of what we got, they're all going on social programs and things like that. Some of them are getting jobs, sure. But the idea that you got 18 million people, or even if you just go by those numbers, it's 6 million people come in and they've all been employed now. They're good citizens paying taxes. It's just not.
I wouldn't say 100. I would give them 50-50, maybe 60-40.
Because the people the jobs that they're getting, whether they have a work permit or not, they're taking jobs and they're getting paid cash under the table because they don't want to pay taxes. They're coming here. They don't want to pay taxes, Chris. They're not following the rules.
Don't either. Fuck. That's why I take cash.
No, I know, but they're not following. So maybe 50% of them have jobs, but there are only 10% of them that are being legitimate.
Right.
Jason,
so they're not paying taxes. They're not doing that thing. And what they're doing is they're padding the rolls for the census, so that in areas where these guys are now, because what they're doing, they're putting them out in the country too, and this is happening in Minnesota. I mean, these guys could address that, and so what it's going to do, it's going to flip these counties where these guys work and their districts. It's going to flip them to, we just brought 50,000 more people into a county that has 100,000 people. What do you think that's going to do for the next election?
Mm-hmm.
Jason, your state and your country, what do you have to say about the what you just saw?
Jason's in Minnesota.
Yes, I am.
That's what I said.
It was kind of a nothing burger. I thought that Trump was going to get muted a lot more than he did. And I also think that Trump missed a massive opportunity when Joe Biden called him out saying he's a convicted felon, and Trump should have said, at least I was competent enough to stand trial.
Right.
Exactly.
But so far what everybody has been saying is pretty much on point.
You had the opportunity to talk as long as you wanted to, Jason.
Yeah, that's just
fucking me, bro.
This son of a gun is the one that complains about the three of us talking over him.
Exactly.
The whole time.
He gets cut off all the time, never gets to talk, and we give him the floor. We didn't even make any comments while you were talking. We said, and you said 2 sentences, man.
So the thing is that if I start talking, I'm going to start coughing again, and it's going to snowball into more coughing. So I need to do another nebulizer to get this coughing under control.
Okay, well, you can do that, and you can come back if you feel.
Well, the American people.
Just saying. I'm sorry, Bruce. I'm just showing this. This is my nebulizer tonight. This actually works pretty good. They sell it in Minnesota too.
Erkenjig? Fucking Erkenjig, really, man?
Yeah, it's good because I have the same cough because he gave it to me.
So I'm glad I didn't go. Y'all were kissing each other and giving each other sicknesses. Fuck.
We were not kissing.
People witnessed a spectacle again, not unlike the Daytona 500 or the Indy 500 or any other spectacle that's been politically charged up, especially in the last year where we've seen Trump continually going to court on charges that to me, I think are politically motivated through the Department of Justice. They didn't touch on that tonight. So I was really surprised on it. But being kind of a rookie and a virgin for these debates, I've only really watched one, and I really didn't watch that one very well. But this one we've watched all the way through. To me, it hasn't swayed my opinion on who or what I'm going to do as far as voting. I think those opinions and those actions are going to be brought forth by people like Shane and Walter, who are very telling and very kind of convincing on telling you why you need to vote. And to me, if I came away with this for anything, it is like how bad Biden has done. And I've been following this a lot. We talk about it a lot on our couple of shows that we have. We have the weather view in the morning and the weather report on Sundays. And I can't help to feel that it has just gone south. I'm sorry, it has gone south. I'd like to say some good things about Biden's administration, but I can't, because I don't think that Biden is actually running the country. His administration runs this country more than he does. He made very, very critical points on the fact that he wanted to do this and that, and all he had to do was sign a paper. All he had to do was sign an executive order. He wouldn't do that. All of a sudden now it's election time, and all of a sudden all this candy is coming out now, just like any candidate would do. You know, you start giving out the candy when you're starting to run for election, but for the last 3 years, he hasn't given us nothing. As far as Trump is concerned, Trump was very reserved. I was surprised that he did not fly off the handle. He was a little whiny for a while. He was backing up his comments on issues that he should have been talking about something else, but Shane kind of steered me into that direction on why. Same with Walter. So I hope to be able to be influenced by real people like Shane and Walter that can convince somebody like me who's on the fence, not so much to vote for either person, but to actually vote itself. And I think that you guys have a great rapport. I think you guys have a great podcast, and I think that you should be out there talking to more people and getting more people like me that are in doubting whether our vote even counts to get out there and vote.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the issue isn't whether or not your vote counts. The issue is whether or not it will be flipped, or whether or not it'll be canceled out by an ineligible ballot that's cast and counted, which shouldn't be. And certainly that's the case in Minnesota, right? Where because we don't have provisional ballots, and to me, that's really the cornerstone of the whole election integrity issue is the lack of provisional ballots. We have same-day voter registration. We have these 45-day periods for early voting and absentee voting, but there's no actual confirmation of who a person is and their eligibility to vote until after their ballot has already been counted. Well, that's like uninstalling all the locks on my house and saying, well, I'm just going to count on the argument that they make. And this is literally true. I have been in the same room as Secretary of State Steve Simon here in Minnesota when he has made this argument, is that people won't risk voter fraud because it's a felony and because the penalty is too high and nobody would want to have to endure that.
Yeah.
That is functionally the same thing as saying, I'm going to take all the locks off of my house doors and my car and my office and count on the fact that nobody wants to endure the penalty for being convicted of unlawfully entering premises and stealing things that don't belong to them or assaulting the people within. Like, it's so absurd, the idea that you're not going to provide basic low-level security for something that has value. And they're the ones who are constantly telling us that these ballots have value, that the right to vote is so important, that democracy is so important. I agree. You know what? I have a hard time believing you when you say that, considering how little you seem to regard the integrity of the ballot. If you actually believe that democracy was this incredibly precious thing that's so important, you would express that through treasuring and protecting the ballots of eligible voters, and yet they don't. So the point that I'm trying to get to there is that you still need to vote regardless. Like, whatever your diagnosis of the election system, it still requires your ballot. And whatever it is we have to do to combat the algorithms or the ballot harvesting or the 10,000 mules or whatever it is that we're pointing to, we're not going to overcome it by not voting. That is 100% certain. We're not going to overcome it by not voting. So vote, and we'll figure out how to overcome it through other methods.
Shane?
I would actually agree, and there's so much to this, and I mentioned this earlier in the preview part of what others are doing, and I mentioned Scott Preslow back then, what he's doing in other states, and this is like so important. I do not agree with early voting. I think a lot of it should end, and Walter, I'm going to correct you. It's 46 days of early voting. Both in the primary and in the general election. So we're coming into that rapidly soon because our primary is, I think it's August 17th. So that's going to be starting really soon. But at the same time, there have been groups and or even the legislature that have successfully pushed against our Secretary of State to turn over the voting rolls, and then it's gone to the state Supreme Court, and he just openly denies to even comply, and they don't do anything. So there's a argument to be said that, well, Walter and I, we run around and we do all this stuff and we talk to people, and people say that, well, our vote doesn't matter or whatever. Yes, it does. Because at the end of the day, I have talked to so many people that normally don't vote. They're not a high propensity voter, but they showed up to vote like in 2022 or 2020, and they were told they already voted.
Yep.
If
you vote,
it happened to me.
If you vote and you burn your vote, they can't use your vote. So this is the argument on both sides of this, because while I have concerns of if you vote early, they know how much they have to cheat by. That's the one argument that I hear from a group of people.
Yep.
On the other side is, if they don't see you voting and they know you're a low propensity voter, they can use that name and whatever, and then they can vote. So it goes both ways. I don't know what the answer is. Walter doesn't know what the answer is. I'm guessing. But at the end of the day, if we burn up all those names that are active living people, because they won't even turn over the active voting rolls that they are currently using, which I know there's dead people on there, I'm pretty sure. But there's not enough dead people that they can pull out of the ground to make the numbers up if you make it too big to rig. And that is kind of the slogan we're going with right now. And it's not a slogan. But if you literally turn out, okay, so let's just say, like, you know what? There's no point in going to vote because it doesn't matter. Then you got whatever the hell Biden's going to be next. This is not going to be Biden in the end. There's no way. So you have Kamala or whoever they put in. Or you change the trajectory of where we're going right now. So you pick your battles. And if people don't see this, up here in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, whatever, if you want to go enjoy your boat, if you want to go do all this stuff, you want to go four-wheeling, you want to go deer hunting, whatever the hell it is, I don't really care. If you look at Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan during the lockdowns, she wouldn't allow anybody to go on their boat.
Right.
Like, she literally created that as part of her lockdown, which was the most amazing thing. But this was the extreme they took it to. And at some point, we as a embodiment of people have to push back. And it's our turn to do it. And I don't know. I'm like Ken said earlier, I'm not telling you who to vote for, but you have like literally two options, and you may not like either one of them, I guess, for certain reasons. I will tell you that one is a hell of a lot worse than the other. And Biden is clearly not the one doing all this. There's many pieces of evidence out there that suggest so. So you decide which pathway you want to go down. And I know Walter and I would prefer a different one.
I'll jump in quick here because you bring up a very, very good point. Having worked in the political machine on campaigns and stuff like that, the amount of technology and stuff, they know if someone's not voted, and they know exactly what he's saying. If you do go vote, that checks the box, and then someone can't take your name and people will do it, and you'll never know. So just for that fact, if you think, well, my vote's not worth anything, well, it's worth stealing. And if someone steals it, then you voted for the people that are stealing the votes are not the people on the Liberty side. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and Ken, to that, you're right, because so the data sets that are out there, it's amazing to me how much data is out there.
Yep.
And it kind of actually blows my mind at times. But not to say it's 100% accurate, but it's pretty darn accurate. But they know you haven't voted in a primary in the last like 4 cycles. You haven't voted in a general election in the last 4 cycles. So they know you're a low propensity voter, but they also know that you're typically, either on the right side or the left side, whatever.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't matter because then the low propensity voter, they can like literally subject those names in or push those names into that. And so the more you burn up all those registered voter names, they don't have the bandwidth to, if for those that want to say it, and I don't disagree, they can't cheat that much because now what are you going to do? You're going to pull people out of the grave.
Yep.
So that's my concern or my thought. Walter, you got anything on that?
Well, I was just going to say that, even if you believe the absolute worst of it, right? If you believe the most virulent idea of them being able to put fraudulent ballots in boxes and have them counted, every legitimate vote cast makes it 1 vote harder for them to succeed.
True.
Okay. So there is some bandwidth, whatever the bandwidth is. They have to actually have a registration, have a ballot produced, get that ballot signed by somebody and turned in, and have that ballot counted. That's a physical limitation on their capacity to churn the machine. And so when you have, as is the case in Minnesota, 2,500 or 3,500 or more known Republican voters per House district not voting, that makes it 2,500 to 3,500 more ballots per House district easier for the Democrats to run that machine, right? So if all those people came out and cast a ballot whenever they feel comfortable doing it, as long as it gets in there and it gets counted, what that does is it taxes the bandwidth, whatever their bandwidth is, and I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it would tax it to where it slows them down. It's like sabotage in the original meaning of the term, throwing a shoe into the gears of the machine to stop it from running. That's what getting out and casting your ballot will do. So do it.
And you are correct because like Preshow says, 40,000 registered deer hunters in Wisconsin are not registered to vote. 40,000 licensed deer hunters.
Right.
3.5 million truck drivers in the United States, half of them are not registered to vote. And you start adding all these numbers up. The Amish, 80,000 people in Pennsylvania, 20,000 people in Wisconsin. Biden allegedly won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes. Amish do not typically vote. 80,000 Amish within Pennsylvania. So when you look at these numbers, and if you get these people to vote, they cannot burn those numbers. So at that point, you got to cheat so hard, it's going to be so blatantly obvious.
Right.
And that's actually what the whole point of it. It's too big to rig. It is really the line on it. And there is no promise of a red wave. I can't emphasize that enough.
Right.
There is no promise of that. It's going to take everybody to get out. It's your country to lose. If you want to just sit back and go, it doesn't matter what I do, well, then I guess you get what you bargained for. At the same point, Walter and I mean, you should hear some of the crazy shit we have to hear. I'm serious. But Walter does a much better job than I do because I damn near curse on the floor, but he does a really good job. But nevertheless, this is ours to lose. And it's not just here. I obviously Walter and I are both in Minnesota, but I have 2 friends that are Michigan reps, and one in Alaska, and I think I have one in Oregon and Idaho. So, but Texas as well, a state senator down there, but and Tennessee, which I wish Walter, you and I would like to be in Tennessee. They have a 75-25 majority.
There you go.
You
guys
really like that.
I just bought a Suburban that'll pull a house. We can all go down. I'm with you.
Well, that comes with its own problems, though, because then it's okay. What kind of Republicans do you have?
Right.
Well,
exactly.
no, I get all that, but the other side of it is, if you all flee, then it's just going to come to a neighborhood near you eventually. Look at the historic game, like the game of Risk, right? You take over one territory, then you move to the next one, and then you move to the next one. Yeah. It's just the gamble of war, right? And
risk. They call it risk.
That's what this is. So we're being taken over. So it's ours to lose. It's up to everybody. I understand. People are concerned about the voting. I totally get it. Actually, I agree. But at the end of the day, if we overwhelm those numbers so much and they still do it, so what are they going to say? Joe Biden got 140 million votes? I mean, how far are they going to go?
Right. Exactly. How far can they go? Exactly. I agree with that. So
you know as well as I do, everybody knows, like, you have a neighbor near you that, decent person. They're obviously not politically like-minded, but you get along. And they come to you and go, how the hell did that happen? Because I didn't vote for him this time.
Yeah.
So then everybody starts talking, and then where does it go from there? Yeah. So at the end of the day, they know there's only so much they can do. Yeah. And I don't know what their take's going to be on it. I haven't watched the liberal media yet because we're still doing this. But there's been some speculation that they were hoping it could go either way. They were going to amp him up so much that he would do okay and or he would fail, and then they're going to try to replace him before the DNC convention. Whichever it is, I don't know. I'm not in the DNC. I couldn't tell you. But either way, that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah. What's up, Walter? I saw you made a message.
Go ahead.
Chris. Yeah, well, Walter put a message in the private chat. So.
Oh, gotcha. So I haven't seen that yet, but
yeah, I was just saying it's getting late, and
cool.
I gotta.
Yeah, well, we gotta shut down anyway.
So anyway, I just want to thank you guys because Shane.
Bruce,
what?
Shut up.
What?
Shut up for a minute.
Here we go.
Fine.
Here we go.
Just want to say that I have historically been a vote for nobody, and I don't show up to vote at all. But you two guys plus your podcast have swayed me, so I actually will this time.
Good to hear.
All right, we did something.
Thank you.
That's one vote in Minnesota,
and probably another vote in California.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, Shane, Walter, thank you guys for being on, and we'd love to have you on again as soon as we can to even convince even more. Maybe the next debate, maybe even before that. Never know. You guys are always welcome to come on in here, and all the 500 or actually 450 plus people that tuned in today, mostly on X, a couple on YouTube,
1,400 on Twitter.
Oh my gosh!
There's 1,400 views. So
just incredible. Want to thank you,
Bruce. One quick second.
Go ahead.
How can people find you guys? Your website, your podcast, all that stuff.
Well, if they follow me on Twitter at Walter Hudson, and they can follow Shane at Shane Mekeland, Mekeland, you're going to see, because we post everything. You can also go on YouTube and look up the Hudson Mekeland podcast. Just put in Hudson Mekeland, the two words, and it should pop up. My website is hudsonformn.com, and Shane can tell you his.
Mine is shanemekeland.com.
Much easier.
And then you find Shane every night on X because he's blowing up X in the middle of the night.
He loves them spaces. So
I do.
Thank you guys again. My crew will be here in the morning for the weather review on X, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be recapping the debate and any other news that happens overnight. And like I said, I just want to thank you guys for being here. Thank everybody else for tuning in, and we're going to be gone. So we'll talk to you later.
Don't forget the Sunday show as well too. We're going to have a Sunday full podcast as well on wherever you're watching right here, right now. Tune back in on Sunday as well.
Absolutely, man. So as I leave you, have a great night. Be good to yourselves. See you later.
See you. And go to the website and sign up for the newsletter.